I am Ilse, mortgage advisor at A&H Finance, normally hosting the webinar. So I already have received a lot of questions from you before. So this time I thought, okay, let's answer the most frequently asked questions, because that will help you the most, I believe. What I will do, I already collected some documents before, or some questions before. I will answer those, but if you have additional questions, so you think that I haven't answered all of your questions that are important to you, please leave them in the chat and I will try to answer all of them and see how it goes. But let's inform you tonight. I'm working with A&H Finance for a longer time already, 7 years in September. So I can say that I know a lot of mortgages and buying houses, and always happy to help. But I'm not helping myself, or not only myself. I'm guiding all the clients with my colleagues, and we are cooperating with the tax savers, for example, with tax applications and doing your preliminary tax return. So if you are a client with us, we take care of everything, or at least try to make it as smooth as possible. But let's start with the questions that you already shared with me before the webinar, and please leave them in the chat as well. But the first question that I received from you was, how much money do you need for the down payment and notary cost when buying a home? This is an important question, of course, because it all starts with, okay, when can I start with buying a house, and when do I have enough savings to invest? But there isn't one answer to this, because it's depending on your situation. But what we can say is the bank is not willing to give you more than the value of the property. So if you're making a bid for, let's do examples, 300,000 euros, and the value of the property is also 300,000 euros, then the bank will not give you more than the 300,000 euros, and you do have additional costs with buying the house. And for example, you do have a fee with the notary, which you definitely need with buying a house. You do have a fee for the appraiser. You do have a fee for your mortgage advisor. Sometimes there is an additional fee for paying a 10% down payment, which is probably in your preliminary purchase agreement. And these all are fixed fees. So roughly what you need to consider for these that I just mentioned is 5,000, maybe 6,000 euros. But there are some additional things that you need to pay or might not pay. And for example, that is the transfer tax. And if you're going to live in the house that you're buying yourself, normally you need to pay 2% of the purchase price. So that's not a fixed fee, but just a percentage. But sometimes there is an exception, and that's very nice. And we haven't had it for a long time. We have it since 2022 or 21. And it has increased. So now if you're buying a house for the first time, they say, and you're between the age of 18 and 35, there is an exception, and you do not need to pay the transfer tax. Which will save you a lot, because 2% of the purchase price is a lot. And the maximum of the purchase price for this year is 525,000 euros. If you're buying for a higher amount than that, you need to pay the 2% transfer tax in all times. So that is important to keep an eye on. But the date that you're getting the keys at the notary, so signing the transfer deed, is very important in this, because if it is in 2026, the limit is increased already. So then the maximum purchase price is 555,000 euros. So if you're making an offer this year, but you're not receiving the keys of the house this year, then there is an increase in the exception. And first-time buyers, they say, is the exception. But if you already have a house, but you didn't use the exception before, then you can use this as well. So you can just use it once, the exception. That's the main thing. Okay, let's continue to the next question. The next question is, are there specific restrictions for international who want to buy a house in the Netherlands? I would not say specific restrictions, because with all the people there are the same restrictions. But if you're a Dutch citizen, it is easier because you are allowed to live in the Netherlands for the longer term. So what is important for the bank is that you're having a BSN number, which is an easy thing to get in the Netherlands. But you also need to have a residence permit. So the bank is giving you the mortgage for 30 years, or that is the max. You can shorten the period, of course, but then your loan capacity is decreasing, but okay. But then they also want you to be able to live in the Netherlands for 30 years at least, so at least for the longer term. And so if you are having a temporarily residence permit, it's not a big thing. Because a lot of expats are having a temporarily one from the start. But if the goal is also temporarily, then it's difficult to get the mortgage with the mortgage provider in the Netherlands. So as long as the goal is for the longer term, then it already is kind of fine to get the mortgage with the lenders in the Netherlands. What is also important for expats to keep an eye on, what is your contract? So what is the income that you're having? Is it stable enough? And is it with a Dutch company? It's completely fine, or at least if it is in euros. If you're not earning your income in euros, but if in a different currency, there still are options. So it's not that you're not getting a mortgage at all, but the choices are a little less. And I think that is already it. What is different than with just Dutch people? Yeah, the rest is just the same with all of the applications. Then the next question, can two people both on temporary contracts of 2 years get a mortgage in the Netherlands without needing an employer statement of contract extension? Yes, it is possible. Of course, it's nice to have a permanent contract. The bank likes that as well, but it isn't necessary. The moment that you're having a temporary contract and your probation time already finished, you are able to get the mortgage. The moment that you do not have a history in the Netherlands, so you're just starting your career in the Netherlands, we need annual statements over the last 3 years to prove, okay, what can you earn? And if it isn't in euros that you earned before, it's completely fine as well. But we need to calculate it into euros and then check, okay, what did you earn in the previous years? But then the bank is considering your average over the last 3 years as your income for the mortgage application. And the moment that you're getting a letter of intent, so the employer statement, and your employer is saying, okay, we do have the intention that if your current contract is ending, that we will give you a permanent contract. So you're not having it at this moment, but the intention is to get it. Then your current income is just counting. So then it isn't different than just having a permanent contract from the start. If they are going to extend your contract again for example, 12 months, then we need to consider the average over the 3 years again. But it is the same with Dutch people as well. So this condition is not different with expats than with Dutchies. If I'm not answering your question completely or you do not understand my answer completely, please leave it in the chat as well, because then I can try to explain it a little bit better if we're doing the Q&A later on. Happy to do. But okay, another question that I also have received is, what is the best long-term strategy if interest rates go down after I have fixed my mortgage? That's a good question. And for everybody, this answer is a little bit different because it's based on your situation. So it's a really personal matter. But normally I also get the question, okay, is the interest rate is quite high compared to what I assume that it is going to be in the nearby future. Is it the right time to purchase a house? And that we can answer that easily if we're 5 years from now, because then we know what it did in the coming 5 years. But I believe that it is a good moment still to purchase a house, because probably it's not going to be easier in the coming few years. And yes, interest rates might go down, and it is relatively high right now for the Netherlands, which also is a question mark, but okay, that is also what I assume. But still, I think that it is a good thing to buy right now. And fixing the interest rate, you can choose what to do with it. And what my advice is in here, because I cannot answer this for everybody, ask yourself, okay, when am I able to take a little bit of risks, and when do I not want to take the risks, and when do I have a good night of sleep? Because spending €1 more on having a good night of sleep, I think it is worth it. And keeping an eye on the interest rate and doing a shorter fixed term, also possible. But have the discussion with your mortgage advisor based on your situation. Because if you're risking your house and if the interest rate is going up and you are not able to afford anymore, then I would say please take security and not risk on it. But okay, good to have the discussion, and I like to have this discussion because I think it is interesting, and you can decrease your monthly cost and maybe the profit with selling your house eventually. But yeah, ask your mortgage advisor. It definitely was a good question. Okay, the other question that I also have received, and I think they all are interesting, and I can imagine that this is a question mark for you if you're going to buy a house, because it is a long-term plan that you're making in a different country. So yeah, important to be informed about all the things, because it is stressful to buy a house. So the little stress you have, the better it is when making the decision. So be informed upfront. Okay, the next question. What happens if I want to sell my house before I've paid off the mortgage? Depending on what are you going to do. But what is important to know is if the interest rate is interesting to keep, you're able to keep. So if you're now buying a house and you're planning to keep it for 5 years, but in 5 years you're not completely paying off the mortgage, probably. Then with selling the house, the notary is going to repay your mortgage completely because the mortgage is stuck with the house. And if there is a 200,000 euros remaining in the moment that you're selling the place, then yeah, you can take for the 200,000 euros the interest rate with you to the new house if it is interesting. If it isn't interesting, so the interest rate in your current mortgage is higher than what is on the market at that moment, there is a loss for the bank, but there isn't a penalty for you, because selling is the exception with every mortgage provider. So that's a good thing. And then you can choose wisely and say to the bank that you're having at this point, keep your interest rate because I can get a lower one for my new house without penalty. If you're not selling the place, but you're renting it out, completely different than what this question was, but important, then you're not selling, and then there is a loss for the bank and there is a penalty for you if you're completely paying off. For this as well, take some advice from people that are doing this every day. And if you're buying a house for the first time, share your plans with your mortgage advisor, because he or she can help you with making these decisions and doing estimations. Okay, what will happen if you're going to continue your life in a different house with the plans that you're having? So yeah, good question. Other thing that might be important with selling your house, which is a little bit different than some other countries in Europe as well. The moment that you're selling your house and there is an overvalue, we call it in the Netherlands. So you're selling for 300,000 euros and the remaining mortgage is 200,000 euros, then the remaining overvalue is 100,000 euros. That's just yours. And in the Netherlands, it isn't taxed. So there is just 100,000 euros on your bank account. The moment that you're going to buy another house in the Netherlands, tax authorities will ask you to invest it in your new property. It's not mandatory, but if you're not investing the 100,000 euros, you cannot deduct the interest rate any longer on the amount that you didn't invest. So that's important to know, but also your mortgage advisor is going to help you with that. Other question was, with the new capital gains tax rules, do I need to pay 30% tax on the profit I make when selling my house? No, the profit itself is not taxed, but the moment that it is on your bank account, it is capital gain tax that you have in box 3. The moment that it is on your bank account, then it is assets that you're having, and then you do need to pay the capital gain tax on that. But then the question is, what do you have on your bank account the 1st of January from each year? And again, maybe you have a deduction in your box 3, so you do not need to pay a lot of capital gain tax. So again, choose wisely and ask for some help, because there are options with this. And being prepared in this is very important. So also, if you're going to sell your house in the 1st of December, it might be more interesting to do it on the 2nd of January, for example, because the capital gain tax is calculated on the 1st of January from each year. So yeah, consider that as well. I think that were the questions that I was receiving before, that I thought, okay, these are important to share with you already. Please leave in the chat a message if you or that your question isn't answered completely, and I'm going to try to do it better. But I already have received a question in the chat from Leonardo. Just to double check, if you are older than 35, would you still be eligible for the transfer tax exception, considering you are a first-time buyer? No, you're not. So the moment that it is your birthday and you're turning 35, the exception doesn't count anymore. So first-time buyer is a discussion that we can have, because it's just using the exception once. But yeah, turning 35, the exception will not count anymore. Okay. Maybe somebody else? Are there any financial advantages on buying newly built homes over existing homes? I believe there are, because with newly built houses, you do not need to pay the transfer tax at all, because it isn't a transfer. You are the first owner of the house. So then it doesn't matter if you are 35 or older than that. So that might be a thing, but the question is, do you have less costs? Because the moment that you're buying a house that needs to be built, you need to live somewhere. The moment that you will become the owner of the property, which isn't there yet, so we can say the ground that is there, the monthly cost for the mortgage will start, because you will go to the notary, you will buy the ground, and from that point of view, the constructor is sharing invoices with you in mostly 10 invoices, that is within 2 months every time or so. But then you already have a monthly cost for the new house that doesn't exist yet. And in the meantime, you're renting a place or owning a place and having a mortgage for that. So in that period, you do have double housing costs. So consider that as well. So advantages, because yeah, the house is already with energy label A triple plus or stuff like that. So it is built on future plans, and you do not need to do a lot of adjustments in the coming years. Your energy label is good, and your energy bill is probably the lowest for you can have. And sometimes in Amsterdam, houses are built in 1800s and something. So sometimes you need to adjust and invest in that. So yeah, it's more what do you like? But there are some exceptions, yes. Okay, another question is, if two people buy a house together and one of us is 33 and one of us is 35 years old, what about exceptions for transfer tax then? Then it's just about the ownership of the house. So if you're both 50% owner of the house, the one that is older than 35 is paying the 2% over the ownership that he or she is having. And the one that is younger than 35 is not paying the transfer tax. So then we can say you're paying 1%. So then you can still use the exception, and you can divide the ownership differently. So that's up to you to decide. But of course, it does need to make sense for the future and not only for the exception. So choose wisely in that as well. And ask your mortgage advisor again. Okay, maybe more questions in the chat? If not, then I explained everything very well, I think. There is another question. And keep sharing, because I'm happy to answer all of your questions. If you do not have a question for now, but tomorrow there is a question popping up, please share with us later on, because our contact details are in the QR code, and happy to help later on as well. Okay, but the question that I have received in the chat, another one, considering energy labels, how does that affect my mortgage amount? It does affect your mortgage amount, and the better the energy label is, so the lower your energy bill is, we can say. A is the best, and I think E is worse that we're having in the Netherlands. The better it is, the more your loan capacity is already increasing with buying the house. But the worse it is, so if you're having E, your mortgage amount is not increasing with buying, but then you do have an extra budget that you can apply for to do the energy efficient improvements. And there is a scheme for this, so I'm happy to share, but it also is on our website that you can see, okay, what is my loan capacity increasing with a certain energy label, but what is the budget that I can spend later on after I've already purchased the house. So yeah, it is impacting, and with energy label A or B, your loan capacity is increasing with 10,000 euros with buying the house, for example. So there are differences, and all the details will help. So yeah, Share it with your mortgage advisor, and also keep an eye on if you're doing a viewing. The energy label is very important for your loan capacity, but also leasehold if that is on the property. And in Amsterdam, we have it a lot. If it is completely paid off, it's not impacting your loan capacity. But if there is a yearly leasehold that you need to pay to the municipality within the coming 10 years, it is impacting your loan capacity. And then it's depending on what is the amount that you're spending on the leasehold. So for every house, that is different. So yeah, keep an eye on that. And being prepared, I already said it definitely is key, because the competition in the market is real. And sometimes I hear people saying, okay, I do not have a chance because the competition is killing, and I'm viewing and making offers. Guidance is the best and preparation is the best. Ask a mortgage advisor to help you, and what are the differences, be aware of this, and what to put in your conditions. Because sometimes you can be a little bit ahead of the competition. So yeah, prepare, please. I think that was it. I have answered all your questions. If there are more, I already said, please share it with me. Yeah, and if there are some more for now that are just popping up, I will stay for 5 minutes longer. And then I'm still happy to gather the questions right now, and I will answer the last one by tomorrow by email. So yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening to the answers that I was having for the questions, and happy to see you next time.